Oh my
Welcome.
goodness. It is a pleasure. I feel like we're becoming fast friends because
Yeah.
we have been talking and meeting and talking, and oh my goodness, this has just been an amazing opportunity. Just having read all of your books, and now you have another one. It's truly an honor. Today, we have the pleasure of none other than New York Times best-selling author, Kimberly Lawson Roby, sorry. And I don't even know where to begin. Like, once we thought, having watched Serena this week or last
Oh my
week,
gosh. Yes.
and seeing how the GOAT isms work, and then you come out with another book, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, so this GOAT ism, I'm putting you in that same caliber and category because that's exactly who you are when it comes to writing and publishing and telling stories and just being this amazing woman person, and you make us feel. And so when we talked the last time, we were talking about the podcast and that journey that you were on when you were talking about the podcast. And my goodness, we had no idea that soon after we would have Sister Friends Forever. Oh
Yes.
my goodness. How are you first?
I am doing well. And, thank you so much for having me again, just for this opportunity. And how have you been doing since we last connected?
I'm trying to stay out of this heat. I am graciously awaiting fall, whatever that looks like. Whatever that looks like, I'm graciously awaiting that. But in the meantime, I am thoroughly enjoying this book. I have not finished. I'm like midway between, but it was near and dear to me. And I was like, oh my God, I got to reach out to her. I know she's probably like, hey, I've already talked to you guys, but I don't have any sisters. And I have friends who have been my friends forever. And it was just an absolute joy. It was like a breath of fresh air. I felt myself in each of the characters when I did my background. I was like, well, wait, this doesn't apply to my sister friends. I'm every last one of these friends.
Yes.
It was at a perfect time because me and my friends, we were talking about our parents getting older, and some of us married, some of us divorced before, kids, late kids, early kids. And this book was right on time post-pandemic because we were trying to figure out how to get our lives together. We're in our 40s now. So we were trying to figure out, how do we do this? Like, how do you become the best mom, the best friend? How do you support someone who's taken so many losses? How do you bounce back? We're trying to figure all this out. And then here you come with this book. So I want to know, first question, what made you decide to write this book?
So it really was, quite a bit of what you just talked about, the idea of sisterhood, how important it is to have those women in your life that sometimes can be a very small circle of women, but the women who have your back, the women who will never, not on any day from now on, be jealous of you, but instead they will lift you up. They will want the best for you. And then you will in turn want the best for them, and you will be there for them no matter what. And I know what it's like to have that really close circle of women that I'm not biologically related to, but I love them as much as I love a family member. They love me as much as they love family members. And so I wanted to show that kind of a relationship in a book. I've done that before. The very, very first book that I wrote was about two women, best friends. And so they stuck together no matter what. They were trying to put their lives back into perspective. And they did that by supporting each other and then changing faces. That was three women. And so now this time, instead of two women or three women, it's four women. And the reason I wanted to write about four women was because I wanted to be able to represent all four relationship statuses. And so Serena is single. Michelle is engaged. Kenya is married. And unfortunately, Lynette is already divorced. And as you were saying, for me, I've been being very transparent since this book was released. And that is what I can relate to all of them. I know what it's like to be single, engaged, married, and I know what it's like to be divorced. And then now remarried again as of this month for 32 years. So
Awesome. Wow. Okay.
yeah.
I was about to say congratulations, but happy anniversary. What
Yes,
day?
thank you. The 14th.
Nice. So
Yeah.
I just celebrated a anniversary on the 4th.
Oh,
Day before
yes.
yesterday, and my parents' anniversary is on the 13th.
Oh, how wonderful.
September is awesome.
It is. Happy anniversary to you and your
Yes,
parents.
yes.
Yeah.
So why now with this book?
Mm-hmm.
Why now? What was going through your mind as far as timing as to why now we're going to write this book?
There is no timing at all for me when I'm figuring out what I'm going to write next. It's what I'm feeling at the moment, what I
Okay.
believe is important at the moment. I have this huge list of topics in a very old spiral notebook that I've had for many, many years. I mean, if you saw it, you'd realize how many years I've had it. And so I'll go through that whenever I'm getting ready to write my next book. And, I'll think, okay, I want to write about this topic and that topic. Sometimes it'll be 2 topics. Sometimes it'll be 3 or 4 topics. And then from there, that's when I create the characters. But what has remained the same throughout my career from the very first book until now is that I write about real life social issues. Women are almost always, with the exception of my Reverend Curtis Black series, but women will always be the main characters. You will see them struggling in one way or another, trying to overcome something in one way or another, and you'll see them be close to other women in the process. When I wrote my nonfiction book, The Woman God Created You to Be, I was at a point where I was really, really burned out just with everything, with writing fiction. And at that point, I didn't even know that I would even write a nonfiction book. I just knew that I needed a break. In 2014, I was doing so much, writing 2 books a year, traveling to events, going out on tours for each of the books, and then, of course, doing lots of events throughout the year in between, and started struggling with anxiety. And then ended up in the ER. I think we may have talked about this before, with a panic attack. And so that's when I thought, okay, once I released this final Reverend Curtis Black book, the final book in the series, which was in 2018, I knew I was going to take a break. But then God had already placed on my heart to write this nonfiction book, but I was hesitant because I wasn't sure that I could do it because I had always written fiction. And so, fast forwarding to taking that break and then starting to write that in 2019 and then starting to move forward with getting ready to publish it and then releasing it in January 2020. Well, that ended up being my most enjoyable writing journey ever. And so then I started thinking about, just kind of talking with my publisher and figuring out what I would write next. And sisterhood is just, again, so very near and dear to my heart. And yes, I have my husband who I love with all my heart and my brothers and other family members. But throughout this pandemic, 2020, 2021, and then now 2022, it is that circle of sisters that have also made such a huge difference in my life. And so timing, no, it's like there's no particular time for any storyline. If you were to ask me, okay, what are you going to write next? What are you going to write 2 years from now? I wouldn't be able to tell you that because I literally sit down and decide what really matters to me at the moment.
That's awesome. And I think it's important for us to realize that a group of friends is essential. I've had the same friends we've grown up together. Our children are growing up together. We've just pretty much done life together, pretty much. And outside of my husband, he understands that my friends are just my core. It would really rock me, when we're getting older and we're talking about people losing people, it would just really distraught me to a level that I can't even imagine if I lost one of my close friends.
Yes.
Because they are like my sisters. And so when I started, I actually bought this book for all of them. And I
Wow, I
said,
appreciate
right,
that.
yes, I did, because it was a way to communicate to them how I felt.
Yes,
I
yes.
saw myself in each character. I wanted them to read it and understand that no matter what I have going on personally or professionally, whatever
Mhm,
they have going on in their careers, in their household, we're still friends and we can still be vulnerable to each other. We can still be
mhm,
transparent because we tell each other things that we probably don't tell our spouses. And not
mhm,
to say
mhm.
that they don't share that level of an intimate connection. It's just that you, for one, they're women, so you feel like they get
Yes.
me regardless. And then
Mhm.
for two, it just feels like if no one else understands, they understand.
Yes,
Even the unspoken things. Even if
exactly.
you don't communicate, if you don't send messages, we have a little group me chat that we talk in, and we hardly ever, somebody's randomly coming in the group me and talking. But the connection that's there, it's like as soon as we hear that ding, we know somebody's coming to share something. Good news,
Mhm.
bad news, crying, whatever, they're coming
Yes.
to share it. And so this book, especially now when people are silently dealing with stuff that they don't want to talk about because social media has made it where if you're not doing good, don't share at all. Like
Exactly.
right, if you are going through something, keep that to yourself, because we only want positive vibes, positive vibes. That's all I hear, positive vibes. And that's great, but after you click off or after you unplug from that, what do you connect to reel yourself in? And those are your friends. Your
Oh, it
friends,
is,
they
no
are
doubt.
your real friends. They're going to tell you the truth no matter what. And
Yes,
so
yes.
we, the nation of women, we we appreciate this book because it not only tells us that it's okay to be the single woman. It's okay to
Mhm.
be the single friend. It's okay to be the engaged friend, because now you can share knowledge to the single friend, but you can also obtain knowledge from the marriage friend. And then it's okay to be the divorced friend, because
It
the divorced
is.
friend is going to tell you everything, the good, the
Yes.
bad, the ugly. The divorced friend is going to tell you what to do not to get divorced, but then the divorced friend is also going to be your sounding board if you just feel like I can't do this anymore. So
Mhm.
with that, how did you decide the narrative for these characters? How did you decide I'm going to have a single friend, I'm going to talk about the divorced friend? How did you decide, of all the things women deal with, why those things?
Because relationships, I think no matter who you are, as a woman, relationships are always toward the top of the list of what you're focused on, what you're dealing with, what your priority is in your life. And so that was my reason. And and I think for me, it is thinking about the fact that I have been all for women at one time or another in my life, as have some of my girlfriends. And then, thinking about just the sisterhood part of it, the things that we have talked about over the years and helped each other with throughout the years. When I was writing this, I have two best friends. I have a really close circle of women. I have a first cousin who we grew up together as sisters because we both grew up in the household with two brothers. Patricia. I have my cousin Janelle, who we, after all these years, decades, just been extremely close and like sisters. And then my daughter-in-law, she's my daughter-in-law, but we love each other and we connect the same as sister friends do. We have that kind of relationship. But my two best friends, Kelly, she and I met in first grade, and we celebrated 51 years of friendship this year. She introduced me to my other best friend, Lori, and we celebrated 36 years of friendship this year. And so just really keeping them in mind as I was writing that, and then again, looking at, what I've been through. neither of them have been divorced, but they certainly know what it's like to be single and what it's like to be engaged and what it's like to be married for decades, the same as I do. And so, I just wanted to show too that if you have the 4 different relationship statuses, that does not prevent you from being best friends and from being able to be there for one another. You may see things differently on some occasions, which you have learned, by reading even just the first part of the book. There are going to be some things that you do differently, but you
Right.
still remain sisters and you still support each other no matter what.
Wow. That's that, all of your books come from a transparent place, but I had no idea that these women were real women. They, not saying that they depict the women that you just named, but you just called out 3 core women in your life. And here we are with 4 women on this cover, and it's telling the narrative of 4 different stories and how they remain friends throughout. So that says a lot, because it's not, sometimes when you read stories, you're like, what was the author thinking? Like, where did they go? But in you telling that story just now, it was almost like, okay, this is where this came from. Not per se verbatim in everything that's happening in the book, but just the rationale of, I love these 3 women and they are my 4.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So it's like, those women, there's not a week that goes by, sometimes not a day that goes by that I don't talk to them, so that is just who they are to me. And that's what I represent to them. And so, so it was wonderful to write this, watching a couple of Sundays ago, the Hallmark movie, Mahogany movie. I think Unthinkably Good Friends. I can't remember quite what the title was, but even just watching that. And of course, now talking about timing, where, when it comes to movies, they start planning for movies, sometimes a couple of years ahead and definitely a year ahead. But what an awesome theme. That is just where I think, the mindset is right now. And it's what women, not only they want to see, but what they want to read about as well. So I'm looking now for books, and there are a lot of books that are out like that, now. And so those are the books that I will be looking for.
I definitely think that this could turn into a movie. I definitely think, because we've seen a lot of movies where, you have Girls Trip and you have movies that have women displaying their friendship. We've had TV shows like Living Single and where women are being true friends to each other. So I definitely could see this going to the movies, and then you get to pick out our 4 women who get to meet.
Wouldn't that be nice? It was with the someone was just asking me about the audio. It's like, it's like there are 4 actresses and people have really been enjoying the audio edition. And so they're like, how did that happen? It's like, well, you know what, that my publisher was kind enough to say, okay, if you want 4 women actors, because I wanted a different person for each character versus one person just reading all of them. And so they sent me a good number of audition reels. And so I was able to just listen to all of them and then choose the voice based on what I heard in my own mind for each of the characters as they were speaking.
Nice. And I'm sure, I'm just throwing this out here, but was the divorce woman the oldest?
No, they're all 40 years old. So that's another thing that they all have in common. So they didn't know each other because of where they lived. So they all lived on 4 separate sided towns. They grew up together and met each other and grew up together because all of their parents attended the same church.
Right.
So,
right.
So that's how they met. But they all, as the story opens, they all just turned 40 years old this year.
God bless. You had me.
And that is, and that was another reason I wanted to really show, okay, not in your 20s and your 30s, but at 40 years old, being single and never married is going to look a little differently than if you're 20s and your 30s and you still haven't gotten married. Getting engaged for the very first time at 40, that's going to look a little different. So yeah. And then being married for X amount of years versus say, 10 years ago when you got married, marriage with your children and all that, that looks different. And even divorce looks different now
Right.
because now you have teenage daughters in Lynette's case. It's not like, oh, you were in, maybe it didn't work out and you got divorced before you even had a child. Now you have children with an ex-husband, and that's a whole other dynamic that you're going to have to deal with.
Absolutely. I told you, I saw myself. I was like, wait a minute. We didn't have this discussion. But it's so good. It's so good. You have a lot of comments about this movie. So we got to see what we got to do about this movie. Debbie Williams said, oh my God, yes to the movie. Lydia's looking for the movie. So we got to see what we got to do about this movie. We keep our fingers crossed. There are
right. Yeah, like hoping so. And we stay prayerful for sure.
Yes. So I do have to ask this question. I received it in a text message. I received a couple of inboxes, and everybody wants to know, are you ever going to write another Curtis Black series or book?
I am still getting that. The entire book tour. It was a brief tour, but all 5 cities, as well as all of my virtual events so far since last month, that question has come up. I get direct email messages from my readers, the comments on social media. And I think it was 2018, July 31st, 2018, the final book in the series was released, and that really was the final book that you'll see in the Reverend Curtis Black series. So it's like, I'm sorry, for everyone who's still looking for it. I've had readers, we've been laughing because I had been sharing the story that one woman a few months ago posted on Facebook. And so she said, is there going to be another one? And there was kind of conversation from multiple people, he has children, you could kind of just spin it off that way, all sorts of suggestions, which were all fine. And so I said, nope, that really was Better Late Than Never, was the 15th and final book in the series. And so not long after she posted, and she said, well, you know what, we're going to pray for you, we're going to pray for you to make the right decision. And so I laughed, and I was reading that to my husband, and we just cracked up laughing about it.
Oh my God.
So it's been a lot of fun, having the conversations. And I, of course, so very much appreciate my readers who, loved the series and supported it for so many years. But I wanted to bring Curtis full circle. I always planned to show that even the worst of people can change their lives and turn it around for the better if they choose to do so. And now that I've done that, I would never want to take him backward. I wouldn't want to do that. So.
Totally understand. Totally understand. Well, perfectly. This can turn into a series. Maybe we can spin off the Sister Friends, or it's just great that people adapt to you, and however they relate is awesome. You've written a lot of books, and Best Friends Forever, I think that was one of my favorite. I can't narrow down a favorite. Every time I think that something is my favorite, then I read something else, and then I'm like, okay, well, no, it was that one. My sister-in-law and we go back and forth about your book. So when this one came out, I gotta get her one, because now I just realized that I didn't. But I was really focused on my friends when I saw it. I was like, I gotta get this for my friends, because we do love to read, and this is about us. This is our life. And so, no, go ahead.
Sorry, no, go ahead. Yeah, no, I was going to say, a number of women have been buying that for the women in their circle. I don't know if you saw on my Facebook page, my first cousin that I was talking about, Patricia, that we grew up like sisters. Right. She's been taking the girls trip with her girls of girls for 27 years. And that was one of the gift bag gifts that she wants. So she bought all of the books and took them with her on the plane, had them waiting for them, I think, when they arrived at the hotel. And so now I've been getting messages, some readers saying, hey, can you sign the books? Can I figure out how to do that? That's what their Christmas gifts are going to be for that circle of women that they're the closest to. So it's been amazing to see that and to hear.
That is awesome. Yes, that is awesome. Turn it into a movement. So we can, and it helps us, believe it or not, it helps us be better friends. Sometimes we feel like we're being the best friend or the best version of a friend that we can be, but being my friend at 16 years old is not the same as being my friend at 41. You know,
No.
it's the dynamics have changed, the conversations are changing, and you know, it's not one of those things that you can just pick up and put down. Right now, you really need to be concerned. I read a post where someone was saying, check on your strong friends.
Yes.
And it came from a strong friend. The strong person, as I know that person to be, made that post, and I was just like, is this her way of telling us we need to check on her? But it also was a reality check of, you know, we take our friends for granted. We take for granted the fact that they're going to always be our friends, or
Yes.
that they're going to accept me for who I am and what I'm doing. But reality is that COVID has taught us that nothing is promised, as if life didn't already teach us that. But COVID really honed in on the fact that nothing is promised. And so you really have to carve out that time. I love the fact that you said, I talk to them almost every day.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that is very powerful, because even sometimes friends can hide behind a text message. I am guilty of sending text messages versus calling, because I feel like I can reach the masses easier. But when you tell me you're fine in a text message versus your voice telling me you're fine,
right.
I can hear a problem easier than I can read it.
And that's the thing. I was just reading earlier, a woman, and I'm not sure how long ago it happened, but it couldn't have been very long ago. I could tell that. And I just didn't have time to continue reading it. Just kind of was going through social media. But a mother was talking about her daughter who committed suicide. And I guess she had said that or posted that at one point. Check on your strong friends. And now her mom is thinking about nothing else except that statement. And so I had that conversation with my husband just this afternoon, and ironically, and was telling him, he's like, oh, you know, this is what the mother is saying. Her daughter committed suicide. It's like, later on, I want to try to find that article to see what happened. But I said, that's very true, because when you are really the strong, independent woman in your family and in your circle of friends, everybody comes to you, you know, with their problems, and you don't mind being there for all of them. And you do that because that's what you're used to doing. The same thing for family. But then when you're going through it, then you almost feel like maybe you don't want to bother someone else, or you feel like I'll be okay. You know, I just need a day or two. But I think that happens more often than not. The people who are the strongest are the ones who really don't necessarily feel comfortable turning to someone else when they need the help that they really need to get. Yeah.
You know, it's funny. Miss Debbie just mentioned something. She said, I love how the group of friends had cliques within the small group. And I, you know, that is, thank you, Debbie, because even in your core group of friends, you still have little subgroups of friends, because you may have met them in different capacities. And so you sometimes you try to blend them all together, like, hey, meet my friends, so and so and so, and then you become one big group of friends, but it still isn't the same as your core group of friends. And it's I'm glad Debbie asked that question, because how do you differentiate between what is going to be for everybody and what is going to be for the core, not necessarily faithful few, because I have a group of friends that we all became friends as a result of one knowing someone else, but we don't always do everything together. Right. It was hard at first, because we were like, well, wait, we're all friends. Why aren't we all doing everything together? But then we had to realize that we're a group of friends within a group of friends within a group of friends that just all came together to be one big group of friends. So how do you determine what's going to be for your core group of friends versus all of your friends?
So, you know, for me, I think it's always been, as much as each friend is willing to share with me and come to me over all these years, those are the same types of things I'm comfortable with coming to them and sharing with them. And so I think that's what happens. And I'm not going to, you know, say, okay, this is what's going on with such and such, if they haven't told them, you know, this is what's going on with such and such. So, you know, that line has to definitely be drawn, and so you don't want to get to a point where, okay, the two of you are like always every day having this conversation about another friend and what they're going through behind their back. But yeah, so, it may be somebody who, you may have one friend who they're going to tell you almost every single thing, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and they don't care how ugly it is. And so then you're going to do that same thing. You're going to reciprocate that. And so I think that's really what it comes to. You just learn what that comfort zone is without even having a conversation about it. You just know what it is. And I think, and then it just works out.
And see, for me, I am that friend. Like my real friends, they know everything that goes on with me, because I just feel like if I don't have a way of escape to tell them what's going on, then we're not friends. Like we're not friends to the level that I feel we are. I feel like I should be able to come to you in my most vulnerable state, my good states, my bad states, all states. I should be able to come to you and feel safe that you're going to listen, or you're either going to try to offer me some advice.
Right.
And sometimes I feel like, I don't know if my friends don't feel safe, or if they don't, because sometimes I could literally have a dream about one. I could just have finished praying about one and something comes over me. And before I can reach out, I'm thinking, well, I'll wait until they reach out. And when I say that, time passes. And by the time they tell me something happens in my head, I'm like, I already saw this happening. Or I already
something was wrong.
And I feel like I have failed as a friend, because it's almost like, if you see fire, say fire. But then it's like, well, why don't they feel comfortable enough to tell me that anyway? They know God going to tell me.
But I think that's it too. We have to respect the fact that even if we're all friends and we love each other, everybody's different. Right. Not everybody's the same. Not everyone, even if somebody has great trust in you, they still may not be comfortable telling you every single thing, especially if it's something that maybe they're not proud of, or it's something they might be ashamed of, or maybe they don't want you to look at them in a certain way. And I think, and there have been times in my life, when I thought, oh, okay, same as you, wow, why didn't I know about this until after the fact? That has happened. But everyone is different. And I just think that we still need to respect that. And you learn what those degrees of transparency are, with each individual. And I think for me, with my circle, it's not the same necessarily as with the women and sister friends forever, because all of them don't talk every single day or every single week. But I'm like that person who I'm talking to this person all the time, and this person all the time, and this person all the time. So those are my tight circle of women. And if we all get together, it's a great time. But if they go periods of time without talking to each other, that's okay, and then they have other women that they're friends with, some in their respective cities, even so.
That's good. That is really good. Okay, so I hate that we have to go back to this, but Miss Tiffany is not letting up. She wants to know, how did you determine that book 15 would be the last Curtis Black book? How did you come to that?
It is. So I really didn't know what that final number would be. So I didn't determine it that way. I just determined, once I had written about Dylan and brought him into the long lost son that nobody knew about for years and years. And then once I was able to write about Alicia and Matthew and with their own stories, that was when I knew I wanted to write the final book. I knew it was time, first of all, to write fully about Curtis's childhood, to really take everyone back to see this is a good reason, and lots of reasons why he turned out the way that he did, because his childhood was so awful. His father was a chronic alcoholic. His father was abusive to him and his mom on a regular basis. And he lived in poverty, for the most part. And so, yeah, I knew then that it was just time to bring it full circle and bring him back, so that you could see him in a relationship with his sister, who he hadn't spoken to for most of his adult life.
Right.
And so, yeah, it was just time, that was always the way that I wanted to end it.
Well, that's good. That's good. And
Mhm.
Andrea says that 3 generations of women in her family have read your books.
Oh,
So
wow. Thank you so much. Thank
that
you
says
so
a
much for
lot.
that.
Yes. And Debbie, of course, says she can't pick a favorite. So I'm with Debbie. I can't pick a favorite. It's too many. And it resonates. Any book you pick up is you're gonna see yourself or see a situation in it. So it's hard to pick a favorite. Tiffany wanted to know, did you always want to be a writer?
I knew that I wanted to be a writer starting out when I was in elementary school, but not a book writer. I just always thought that I would either write for a newspaper, I would either write articles for a magazine, or I would be in journalism and become an anchor woman. And so never did I think writing would have anything to do with writing books. And so it was not until I was 30 years old that I sat down and started writing behind closed doors.
Wow.
Mhm.
An anchor woman, huh?
Yeah, yeah. So everyone always laughs about that. When I was in junior high school and had journalism class, we had closed circuit TV. And so our journalism teacher decided that he wanted to produce morning news broadcast, just like 5, 6 minutes or so right after the bell rang, everybody be in their classes in their seats and this little broadcast would come on. And so he had us audition for the anchor position. So of course that would involve, writing your scripts and doing all of that. And I literally for that first semester of that year, I was chosen to be the anchor. And so I would put on that little news broadcast as soon as the bell rang, Monday through Friday, for that entire semester. And I love that. So I've always loved that kind of thing. And I love the writing part of it. And I wrote for the school newspaper at the same time that I was doing that. But again, I never ever thought that I would write a novel. And again, I certainly never thought that I would write a nonfiction book.
That's awesome. I think we would
Mhm.
love to see you on TV. I mean, you definitely have the voice. You definitely have the voice.
Well, thank you for that.
Love to see that. That's awesome. At least your dream tied into where you are now. So
And it does, I think back to that. It's like, gosh, even my sixth grade teacher would always say, I joke about this all the time because he would have us write papers and turn them in. And if he said, tonight, I want the class to write a paragraph, then that meant I was going to turn in a whole page. And if he said, tonight, I want the class to write a whole page, I'd turn in 2 to 3 pages. I could never just do what he was
right.
asking me to do in this short space, this little bit of time frame. And so one day when we were taking our papers up to his desk and going back to our seats, and when he came across mine and he was like, Kim Lawson, why is it when I ask you what time it is, you have to build me an entire clock? Why
Yeah.
can't you just say what time it is and move on? And he'd laugh and we'd joke about it. And he'd say, I know I'm always giving you the business about it, but you really have a lot to say and you have a gift for writing. And I just hope that you will pursue that, you will follow that. And that was in sixth grade. And I heard what he was saying, but I didn't really take that to heart at all. Then
Yeah.
journalism class, wrote for the school newspaper, loved it, was writing the scripts for the morning broadcast, loved it. And I think though, what happened for me was I went on to high school, kind of got away from it, but then I started hearing it again from teachers. And then I
Mhm.
started looking at the salaries of writers and how little they made. And so I thought, no, I'm not doing that. And so that's really, no, not going to happen. I love this. But that's why I tell, young people in high schools and as well as in colleges and universities and just to women, grown women, it's
Mhm.
like, please focus on your purpose. Please pay attention to the gifts and the talents and the abilities that God has given to you and only to
Mhm.
you, because that's where you'll find your purpose. Your purpose has always been with you. So I guess I should say that's where you'll discover it and really go on to do what God has placed you on this earth to do in the first place.
Yes. Yes. That is
Mhm.
incredible. So, okay, so Cynthia says you're an excellent storyteller. She's enjoying
Mhm.
the book and it reminds her of her sister girlfriends.
Thank you so much. Thank
And
you.
Sonia says Behind Closed Doors is an awesome book too, and she has that one in her collection. And then Debbie chimes in and says the ex-wife was a piece of work.
Yeah, she
She wants,
definitely was.
yes, she wants to know where you pull your characters from.
So, yeah, sometimes it is, because I've met so many different people along the way and I'm inspired by who they are, what they do, what I've heard about, what I've seen. Sometimes it is literally just reading the news stories, in newspapers, or seeing a story on CNN. It just sort of depends. Sometimes it will relate to something I know about. For example, in my book, It's a Thin Line, it's about three siblings, two sisters and an adult brother. And the eldest sister becomes a caregiver for their mom, who becomes terminally ill. And so I knew what that was like all too well. My mom became terminally ill. She had a brain tumor. It was not cancerous. So that meant it was a very slow growing and a very slow deteriorating process over a 2-year period, and just how devastating that was for me. And so much of the dialogue that you read between Sydney and her mother, Dolores, are identical to words that my mom and I actually said to each other before she passed away. There are a number of stories where I've just saying, okay, wow, this is what it was like for me, but then I'll do what if. And so when you're reading about it, it won't be my exact story, but I'm inspired by that. And then I'll always start thinking, but what if it had happened this way instead of the way it really did happen with someone else?
That's a good, and that's what I went back to that earlier when I said in reading your books is so much transparency in listening to you speak that you can tell that these stories are not just coming off the top of your head. They're coming
Right.
from a place, a time, experience, all of that. That's just awesome. Bridget wants to know, will Sister Friends Forever be a series of books or a standalone?
Yep. So, I write every single book as though it is going to be a standalone and you will never see those characters again. And Casting the First Stone included. When I wrote Casting the First Stone, that was the first book about Reverend Curtis Black. It was never my intention to turn that into a series. And as a matter of fact, when I first started writing, I said I would never do that because I never wanted to feel like I was repeating myself or, okay, what do I do next? And then you certainly, the worst of the worst is to have readers tell you that it's time to give it up, and, move on to something else. And of course, even with the Reverend Curtis Black series, I would hear that from time to time. It's like, oh, you know what? I, don't really read the Curtis Black books anymore. But I read all of your standalone titles. I started releasing the novella so that I would have 2 books a year, but that was a very small percentage of all my readers.
Who said that?
Yeah. So, if I had to guess, I would say 3 to 5% of my readers, so
Right.
95 to 97% of my readers wanted to continue reading about Reverend Curtis Black. But yeah, so I'll see. I've kind of thought about it. It's like, if I did do a sequel, would it be all 4 women? Would I maybe pull out one of the women and you really get to see their story by themselves? So, we'll see. But and my other thing is I'm definitely thinking about another nonfiction book as well to go along with that.
Awesome. And you still have the podcast. So
Yep. So it's like now, I haven't done the second season of that, but I've been getting a lot of requests for it. And then, of course, I started my new sisterhood community for women. And so I'm pretty focused on that right now. And so we'll see, going forward for 2023. Kind of been in the planning stages now. As a matter of fact, I took a 2-day sabbatical at a hotel last week to really just go into prayer and just listen to, where God wants me to go for 2023 and what I'll be working on and in what order.
that is awesome. I am a forward thinker as well. It's like fourth quarter is really first quarter for me because I feel like it's over.
Yeah.
And so you said something very intricate just now. It was like, you took a sabbatical, separated yourself from everything to figure out exactly what God wanted you to do next steps. And that's difficult sometimes. It's very impressive that you said that, because sometimes when you get to this level, like where you are, you hear God less and less. You start hearing,
Mhm.
yeah, I did it. I wrote all the Curtis Black series. I did this. I did this. But you are very appreciative of everything that God has done for you, and you
Mhm.
going forward, you can't go forward without him. So that
No.
I appreciate that for you, for that, saying that, because sometimes we sit down and we write out our goals, and we write out our goals. We write
Yeah.
out what we want to do, what we
Yes.
want to see this happen. And I'm very guilty of that. So I am speaking from both sides of the stick, but I do realize that sometimes I have written things down and he has done none of those things. And something totally different, but it still blessed me in the same right. But it was just a reminder that my thoughts are not your thoughts, and you can't just come at me with this list and feel like, because you're in church and you're paying your tithes and you're doing what you're doing, that I owe you this list. I
Yeah.
still have plans for you. So it's very important that everyone catch that. If they don't catch anything else, that they catch that, because that's very important in you saying that I had to take time to carve out to see what God wanted me to do for next year. Not so much
Yeah.
what I want.
No. And that's the important part for me. It's like, I want it to be about him. What is it that he wants me to do? I know my purpose is to help women, in every way that I possibly can. But how does he want me to do that? Should I be doing more speaking engagements versus turning
Mhm.
some of them down? Should it be fiction for the next book, with some of the ideas I've been thinking about, or should it be this next nonfiction book? My podcast, if I'm going to do the second season, when do I start that? But yeah, I need to hear from him. And when it's something that he doesn't give me peace about or doesn't give me an answer about, I know that can't be at the top of the list.
Right.
That's got to be pushed a little further down. That's not what he wants me to work on right now.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Okay, so Tiffany wants to know, what is the sisterhood community for women? Can you
Right.
share
So,
that?
yeah, so I just launched that in June. It's called Successful Women of Faith, the Sisterhood. And I wanted to create this sisterhood on a private platform, create a safe place for women of faith who, they may be writers, they may be business owners, they may be interested in becoming writers and wanting to know more about how to start a business that maybe they've been wanting to start for many, many years and just have been afraid to do so, or they just didn't know how to move about or go about doing it. We also have various circles inside. So, for example, you can join different circles once you're on the inside of the community. One is called Discover Your Purpose, because I'm finding that so many women don't know their purpose, or if they do know their purpose, they're afraid to fully step out and fully
Right.
walk in it. And so we're able to talk about that. There's one called Women Who Write. So you got women who are aspiring writers, women who have maybe written one or two books, and you have veteran writers, women who have written many, many books. And so they're able to all help each other. And of course, me, really being the lead mentor,
Right.
who can, after 30 years, almost 30 years, I shouldn't say 30 years, but it's very close to 30 years of doing this. There are very few questions that I don't have an answer to when it comes to writing and publishing and self-publishing. So my goal is just to try to help women in every way I possibly can with that. Starting Lennox Press, which is what I self-published my first book with, and my nonfiction book. And then now having an LLC, I can even speak to helping women on how to start a business and how to market your business and how to get more exposure for your products and your services. We have a circle called Proverbs 31 Wives. That's for married women, where they're able to communicate with each other and talk about whatever they choose to talk about. Women who are recently married, and women like me who, this month will have been married for 32 years. So it's a good range. There's one called Single, Happy, and Fulfilled, which is for single women because my goal with that circle was, I wish I had had something like that before I met Will. I wish I had had a group of women I could get together with who could encourage me and let me know that it's okay to be single and that you can still be happy and fulfilled in the meantime. You don't have to date men who aren't good for you just for the sake of having someone in your life. And so, yeah, so it is just a safe place. There is a monthly charge. It's $12 a month to be in the platform. If you pay annually, it ends up being $10 a month because it's $120 a year. And so there's a little over 120 plus women that have joined since June, and just some of the best women that I have ever met. I've certainly met some wonderful women who are my readers throughout these years, as well as on social media. But these women really they're doing exactly what I hoped and prayed for. They are supporting and uplifting each other, and encouraging each other in every possible way.
That is awesome. And she wanted to know if she can join this community. Yes, you can,
Yes.
Miss Tiffany.
Yes, you can. Just go to successfulwomenoffaith.com.
Okay.
And then you'll see all of the information. It'll tell you more about it, what you can expect, how to join. And you can also go to kimroby.com and you'll see the sisterhood at the very top that you can click on.
So I hope you got that information. It has been wonderful. I can talk to you endlessly, and I'll reach out to you again and we'll talk about something else. But it is always a pleasure just talking to you. You're so warm and inviting, and I can just tell that this is not a job. This is not a hobby. This is your life. And as you said, this is your purpose. This is what you've been called to do. I hope the women and a few men who were on tonight were deeply inspired by your words, not so much just about this book, but just about why you move the way you move, why you do things you do, and just how humble you are, even in the success of it, how humble you are to still continue to do it God's way. And that is just, that's why we're here. That's why we exist, And so I want to encourage everybody to make sure you get the book. If you do not have Sister Friends Forever, you and your sister friends need to get it. And also follow her on her podcast, follow her, just go to her website, kimroby.com, and follow all things Kim Roby. We know her to be Kimberly Lawson Roby, but just follow her all things. Like someone mentioned earlier that they are homesick from the Curtis Black series, so they're going to go back and reread it. We're going to be doing that, and we're going to be praying for you and with you that you get this movie, because I really feel like by the time everyone gets to the end of this book, they're going to say, I wish I saw this on Netflix or Tubi, whatever. There's so many platforms now. It can happen. Amazon, all that good stuff. So
yes.
I don't know if that was what was in your prayer wheel for 2023, but we will definitely, us on the outside, we would definitely be looking forward to seeing that in some capacity. And hopefully it turns into a series where, we don't want to lose one of the characters, but as we age in place, life happens. And that would be seeing what happens when you lose one of your best friends. And
exactly.
That's a lot. Danetta says, Danita, I'm very sorry if I mispronounce it, but she says, Sister Kim, I can identify with everything you have written about in your books. Thank you for everything you give to me to make me feel good about myself through all the women you write about.
Oh, wow. That's very kind. Thank you, Danita, for that. That's another one of my hopes and my prayers, as it relates to my books, that before I start every writing session, with every book, fictional, throughout all of these years, it is, Lord, give me the words you want me to say. Let these words, let the story, let the scenes in this book help women, in one way or another, even if it's just one woman, but hopefully many. And so I appreciate hearing that. That means everything.
Yes. Marcy says you are amazing, and she is blessed that you shared your gift.
Well, thank you, Marcy. Thank you so much.
So we really do appreciate that. Of course, our good friend Debbie down here says she echoes what Danita
Yeah.
said. So
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, everyone, too, for being
cute.
on. And yes, and Tia, thank you again. Thank you for the opportunity, for reading my books and for being so supportive for so many years. It really, really means a lot. The years can pass, and people can sometimes be people, but sometimes you have people that just continue to support you no matter what. And you have been one of those people. And
Oh,
I'm very, very much appreciative of
I
that.
appreciate it. If anything came out of this pandemic, I got to connect with you. And I
Yeah.
know it's been not, before the pandemic, it's hard to reach your favorites. Like,
Mhm.
social media and all that has made it accessible, but it's really hard. And I'm just so grateful. I'm like, I've been reading this woman's books for years and now I'm talking to her. So that's definitely something I can mark off my checkbox when I say my prayers as well too. So it's a gift well received, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So, like I said, guys, make sure that you keep up with all things Kim Lawson, Roby. Get your books. Support her. Go to the website. Make sure you register for the class. I'm going to join the community to figure out which community I need to be in, but I'm
Mhm.
also going to do that. One last question, Miss Kim. I have been following you and reading your book since Casting the First Stone. I
Uh-uh.
love your work. That is
A
from.
long time. Yeah. That's a
Oh,
long, because Casting the First Stone was released in 2000. So gosh, it feels strange, but 22 years ago.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually I've written 2 books before that. So I said, it's like, wow, I've been writing for a long time.
Mhm.
Long time.
We're going to do a challenge on our social media page. So everybody who's on right now, they can have first dibs on it. But we're going to do a challenge, and we're going to see who has the most books currently of yours. And
Mm-hmm.
they're going to put them in a picture. They can
Yeah.
tag us, share it to us. They can tag you as well. But whoever has the most books that does not currently have Sister Friends Forever, I'm going to send it to them. So make sure you pull out all of your books.
I love that.
Yes, I'm interested in just seeing this picture because I know I'm not going to participate because when I go home, it's like, ooh, you know. And after we talked the last time, I made sure I got a couple of my books back. So I was like, wait, I'm missing something. But, I really do appreciate it. We appreciate everybody being on. We thank you for your time. Thank
Yes.
you for your talent. And most importantly, thanking you for utilizing the gift that God gave you. Even, what did you say, 22 years?
Well, I was saying from when Casting the First Stone came out, but I had actually written Behind Closed Doors and Here and Now prior to that. So Behind Closed Doors, I started writing in 95.
Yeah.
So 27 years this past April from when I first started writing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're going to have a big celebration at 30. We just might get our
Yeah.
movie guys at 30. Miss
I know.
Kim,
I hope so.
thank you so much. We hope that you have an amazing evening and keep writing because we are definitely going to keep reading.
Thank you so much, Tia. I appreciate it.
Yes. Good night.
All right. Good night. Good night, everyone.